Hi, everyone. I want to welcome Jennifer Berkowitz to talk about herself, what her experiences are. Obviously, you can read the bio. I don't want to introduce her because if you read their bio, we don't have enough time to do it. But basically, I met Jennifer through Scaling Up, and her course on teamwork and building people was inspiring. She recommended books. I read them all. She has her own course now, which I will definitely take because I think that she has such energy there. But I want to start by welcoming you to the podcast, and then obviously want to get to know you a little bit more. So thank you for being here.
Yeah, man, thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be with you today. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So let's start with the first question, which is more like, why do you do what you do?
Yeah, that's a great question. Great solid question is to kick us off, right? So why do I do what I do? I think my whole purpose in life is to give others the same freedom I have. I've been very fortunate in my life that I've always known what I wanted to be and do in my life, which was to be an entrepreneur. And ever since I was actually 8 years old, I knew I was going to be an entrepreneur. In fact, my first car in college, the license plate said CEO to be. My college graduation hat said CEO to be on it. I mean, I knew I was going to be a CEO, and I was very fortunate. I had a lot of great mentors in my life, and I had started a couple of different companies. One turned out to be a very successful company, grew it into a nice sized multi-million dollar debt free, very profitable business. And after I sold the company, I realized I hated retirement. I realized there's two different types of retirement. There's business retirement and financial retirement. Financial retirement's great. Business retirement at the age of 40 at the time was not so good. How old am I now? I'm 51 now. But when I was 40, I was like, okay, I need to do something with my life. And I learned that my real purpose is to give others the same freedom. And I had great coaches, and I still have coaches today in my tennis game and everything else, that I just want to help others achieve their dreams to get freedom. That's what it's all about.
For
Freedom
sure.
of money, freedom of time, freedom of just everything.
Let's go back into the or dig deeper into this coaching aspect. What do you think has been What was the best advice that you received that made you make the leap to sell your company? And then the follow-up question to that is, would you do it again?
Good question. So interestingly enough, I wasn't actually looking to sell my company. Was I would be approached often in my business because my business was scaling fast. It was in a very good situation. I was pretty much out of the day to day of the business at the time, and it was running really smoothly. And what was interesting about it was that I had just given birth to my second child, and my little one was probably a couple months old when one of my competitors reached out to me, and I was just kind of joking with them. I'm like, I'm not interested. They would approach me every once in a while. I'm like, I'm not interested. I'm not interested. And they were like, Jen, we just want to find out, we can tell you what we think the business is worth. And I was like, you know what? I'm sitting there with my child. I'm like, let me at least find out. And jump ahead. It worked out. It just made sense. And I wanted to make sure all my employees were taken care of. I made sure that not only did they have great jobs, but I gave them, for every year they were with me, I gave them a month of pay. And I just wanted to make sure that everyone was taken care of. I wasn't looking to sell, but I just got an opportunity I just couldn't pass up at the time. And I think it made sense. I had had the company for about 12 years. Would I do it again? I think I learned a lot of lessons now in the next 11 years of my life, especially now that I've coached a whole slew of companies, and I've helped quite a few companies have massive scale ups. I learned that I was not thinking big enough in my business. I probably could have asked for more. It's all of those things that I could probably look at and say, what if I did this? What if I did that? I definitely have a lot of whip marks on my back of things I did wrong. Did a lot of things right. I had a great team. I'm very proud of that. But if I were to have done it all over again and know what I know now, I probably would have changed things, obviously, like everyone else would have done. But I have no regrets on selling. I love my life today. I love the freedom I have today. So I don't have any regrets. No question about it.
So you think it's because you didn't build a business to sell that then got sold, that's why you have those sort of feelings that now that you are coaching entrepreneurs, you see, if I had a coach, maybe I could have done a better structuring, or maybe a bigger sale, or
Well,
sold it at a better time.
Yeah, I actually did have coaches. I used scaling up coaches in my tenure. We did a lot of the things right. I mean, I had operationalized my entire company. I loved the book E-Myth Revisited by Michael Gerber. I looked at my business like a franchise, even though we weren't. My company was called Boomi, Backup My Info. It was a online data backup and recovery business, but it was very different from all the other companies in the space. We were really premium, a whole white glove service offering. I was about 10 times more expensive than my competitors. We had real time metrics across my entire company. I think the fact that I had operationalized everything and I had real time metrics and the company was running really smoothly and we had great clients. In fact, one of my clients, I think my largest client made up of less than 1% of my entire business, which was also real, yeah, which was also really good to have. So interesting enough, when I went through the LOI and then eventually sold, once they looked into my business, I ended up selling for even more than what we originally started with because of the fact when they saw everything, they realized how valuable the business actually was.
It's a wonderful, wonderful case study of, LOIs are usually to show an interest, but then
To
look under
kill
the
you
hood
through
and
it,
say,
yeah.
hey, everything is wrong, so I'm gonna retrade you down. But this is a case of retrade up.
Yeah.
What is one of your like favorite client stories or something that you can share that was something like that transformed the way that you do business now?
Gosh, I have so many stories. Okay, I have one for you. So I'll share a client story, but I'll share it in more of a general sense of what I see now with every company I work with. In that this was a team that I worked with. It was a mother-daughter team. They were phenomenal. Just I adore the whole team. But they came to me, they were struggling, they were stuck in their business. Their revenues were really kind of stuck. They were doing a few million, just really feeling just frustrated that they couldn't get to the next level. And the first thing that I did was look at themselves and the team, and I looked at the two of them and I said, you're in the wrong seats. Like, you literally need to swap seats. And they looked at me like it was a deer in headlights because they had been in business together forever, and it was a technology company. But just imagine for a moment, you have the mother who was this really just incredible, was in the war, process ninja, Iron Woman triathlete, like just incredible person. She used to be a nurse in the war, and then the daughter was this bubbly creative type. Just imagine who was doing marketing and sales and who was doing the technology team, right? Like, it made no sense to me. So I said to the two of them, I'm like, you guys have to swap roles. And one of the first things I do with every team is, you got to look and make sure you've got the right people in the right seats doing the right things right. So we did that. We assessed what was going on. We also we changed a lot of the things that they were doing, how they were showing up, what their strategy was, how they were going to capture the market. Also instituted role playing on the sales team and just cleaned out sales, really, put the right people in the right seats and made sure we were measuring everything. And they went from I think they went from 3 to 9 to 15 the second year, million. And I remember recently they had closed like a $60 million deal. I mean, they really started to run off to the races at that point. But it really all stems, that's just one example, but it comes down to when people ask me, Jen, what is it that separates companies? What makes them scale? What makes them stuck? And I think it's really it's a few things, Ahmed. One is you have to have the right people in the right seats. And sometimes you have to make those tough decisions. And this is where I think most companies stop. You might have amazing people, but they can't get you to that next level. Or you may have the right people, but now they're in the wrong seats, right? There could be a number of factors that happen. But you really have to get the right people in the right seats. And you have to measure your business. I see too often in people, in companies, you're measuring your financial and your sales dashboards and maybe your marketing dashboard, but what about everything else? What about your customer advocacy? What about how you're running your operations? I see too little of that. And my question for you, for the audience is, well, how can you manage a company if you're not measuring it, right? So all these things really need to get in place. And one more thing also needs to happen. Hold on one second. Which is, where are you going, right, as a business? Yeah. And I think that's also a fundamental, and why I created this recent course that I'm happy to share later. But the question I think people need to think about is, well, what does your business look like in a year, 3 years from now? Because if you're not clear visually of what you want to get accomplished, then how the heck is your team going to know how to help get you there? And that's one of the number one reasons why I see companies being stuck, is that they're not clear with where they're going. And if you're not clear, then don't expect anything different, and don't expect your day to look any different, because what are you working towards? So that's some of the highlights. But what I have seen is the companies that do make the tough decisions, that do put the work in to get, the right people in the right seats, doing the right things right, measuring things, and really looking at how we're handling our cash, how we're, leveraging the whole operation. Their whole games change, completely changed. I had one client, my favorite, they like quadrupled in size, and then they sold in the end of February 2020. Talk about timing.
Yeah. And how do you develop, because it doesn't seem logical, and it is logical, and it's easy, as I like to maybe put in parallel, like if you want to lose weight, you need to eat less and exercise more. Building a company, it means it's almost the same. Like you need to hire the right people, have the right people, and know where you're going. But how do you develop that sense of smell? Like how do you develop that intuition, perhaps, or that gut feeling that you're like, this mother-daughter team should really swap places? How did you develop that, or what can you give us that so that we can develop that too?
Yeah. Well, I think it's a few part question. So to answer that last part, I think I'll start with that part first, and then I'll go to the first part, which is, when you look at the mother-daughter team as the example, the easiest way you can figure things out if you're in the right seats is by metrics. The question you want to ask yourself is, you think about the functions in your business. You got marketing, you got sales, you got operations, you got IT, you got the various parts, if you're in e-commerce, maybe you got procurement, logistics, right? Like the various areas of your business. The question you want to be asking yourself is, well, how do I know that that area is doing well? In other words, why should that person get paid who runs it? What are those metrics? What are those KPIs that, those key performance indicators that would help me to understand the health of that area? And that's the first thing that you can look at to know if you're in the right seats or not, based on how that area is doing. If they're not doing well, then the question is well, maybe they're the right person, right culture fit, they're great, but they're in the wrong seat, right? Maybe we need to switch them around, which is what essentially happened in this scenario. I think that's usually what happens to figure that part out with the people. In terms of knowing what to do, I think you said like how to smell it, or I'm trying to remember the exact words you used.
Yeah, like a good sense of smell. It's something.
Yeah. That's the thing. No one teaches this, right? And that's the fundamental flaw with all of these books, which I have a lot of books behind me, but the books and the courses out there is they're all telling you to do it, but no one teaches you how to do it, which is why, and if you don't mind, I'm going to put a quick plug in, why I created this course, the Freedom Goal Group Launchpad course, because that's the whole problem. No one teaches you how do you figure out your North Star? How do you figure that all out? What are the questions you need to be asking? I've been very lucky in my life. I've gotten great mentors. How did I get great mentors? I asked a lot of questions. I listened. I would ask for help, right? I think too often as business owners, we don't ask for help. I think most people out there genuinely do want to help other people. The question is just ask, right? What's the worst thing they can say is, no, I don't have time for you. I remember one person when I was just starting out, my friend Jeff, who's a dear friend of mine now, at the time he was leading marketing for a company that was very fast growing. And I got to know him and I said, Jeff, can I bring you Starbucks and pick your brain for 5-10 minutes any given time, just to find out how you're doing your marketing efforts. And he was like, Jen, happy to do that, right? He was so sweet. He didn't know me at the time. Now we're good friends, but at the time he saw this younger person trying to figure things out, and he was willing to help me. Now, granted, the Starbucks probably helped, but why not ask, right? I get calls from people. I'm happy to help, give some experience shares that might be helpful.
And I think that's something that you answered the question before I even asked it. Is like what is like the biggest mistake entrepreneurs are making, and really it is not asking for help. Is trying to do everything themselves and thinking like, oh, I cannot reach out to someone that's 10, 20 steps down the line because they're just going to say no. And I think everybody that I've encountered, everyone that's been in my position is happy to spend not 5 minutes, maybe an hour, 2 hours.
Totally. I'm sorry.
Exactly. Like just there's a big community because people know the pain, know the suffering, know how hard it is to build a business, that they are happy to give advice.
There is a great book on this, and I am like obsessed with this guy who wrote it. And I actually reached out to him on LinkedIn just to congratulate him. His name is Alex, and I can't remember his last name. I apologize off the top of my head, but it's called The Third Door. And it's all about this kid who was in college who just woke up one day, and I'm not going to give the details of the book, but it's a phenomenal book. But he was in college and he just looked up at the wall one day and he's like, I don't think I want to go to medical school, but I need to figure out what is my purpose? What do I want to do in life? And he went off and figured out how to get in front of all these crazy people like Bill Gates and, oh my gosh, there's like a laundry list of people. Hathaway, I mean, just a whole laundry list of people. He figured out how to get in front of them and ask them for advice. And it is the most brilliant and in a funny story of how he did it. I recommend listening to it on Audible versus a book because he talks in his own
voice,
like his own way, and he's hysterical. But it's called The Third Door. I highly recommend that book.
We'll definitely read it or hear it.
See if you can get him to come talk. I'm telling you,
I'll try.
great.
Going along those same lines, what do you feel people misunderstand about entrepreneurs?
That it's easy, that anyone can do it. Oh, and my favorite is that the revenue that you produce is all profit. Those are usually the typical ones.
Yeah. I like that you said it's easy because I find that a lot of entrepreneurs have it easier to respond, or at least they think that like they encounter this all the time. And I appreciate the answer. Entrepreneurs, like maybe moving on to another subject, is like entrepreneurs hire me to get access to best investments for them. And when I'm working with them, I see that they are more risk averse than they seem to be.
Oh, interesting.
Do you find that in your case, or how do you see investing, or how do you see this other side of the world?
So are you talking about from my personal perspective or how my clients are? Okay. I'm very risk savvy. Like, what's the word for it? Not adverse, the other
Risk
direction.
prone or risk taker?
A risk taker. I don't know. From an investment perspective, I've always believed in invest in what you know. Because I have a computer science background and I've been in tech most of my life, I tend to sway more towards the technology route because that's what I know and that's what I understand and that's what I'm passionate about. I think with anything, I think whether it's investments or even your career, my dad gave me the best advice when I was a kid. He said, Jen, never ever chase the dollar. If you chase the dollar, you're going to be miserable in life. Chase your passion and the dollar will come. And I think that's true for investments. I think that's true for your career. I think that's just true for everything in general. As far as the investment world with my clients, I think I definitely see a mix because, you know, in order to get to that next level in business, sometimes you have to make some big decisions investment wise. Sometimes it's scary. They don't want to necessarily take a chance, especially in this market right now where there's a lot of uncertainty, you know, with the elections, now I know the interest rate went down, but just in general, there's been a little bit of nervousness. I know I have one client that's trying to raise money right now, and they have a phenomenal company, great track record. They're in the property management space. They're looking to acquire some additional buildings in the retail space, and I think they're seeing some hesitation, but my gosh, they've been around for a long time. They've got great track record. They just need the right investors who are going to be that, you know, savvy to want to see the future with them. They have a great team. They're great.
So you're saying that because of uncertainty, stay to what you know, and even if there's a bad market, there will always be great opportunities. It's not really the
100%.
market that determines if there's a good opportunity or not.
In fact, I'm telling my clients right now, because they're all, for the most part, doing really well financially, this is the time when there's this kind of recessionary fear that's out there. This is the time to be making those investments, to go find, hire top talent, to do marketing, to do all those things, do the opposite. That was one thing that someone told me to do, and I'm very grateful for it back in 2007, 2008, when the Bernie Madoff, like that whole crisis of recession that was out there with real estate. At the time, we pushed forward. We were doing a lot more recruiting, a lot more marketing, and I think it really helped to elevate our brand, because once the dust settled, a lot of our competitors went under, and yet people knew about us and saw us being strong because we were out there doing a lot of things. So it definitely helped elevate us.
Yeah, I love that, because it's sort of an attack to inaction. In the moment that there's sort of like blood on the streets, or fear of blood on the streets, everybody kind of recoils, but really the ones that go forward and say there's still opportunities, but we still have to keep going, and now is when you make the hardest decisions, really. are the ones that pay off the most. I do have like a little story that ties in with like real estate. It's more like when recessions happen. I remember seeing this asset that I loved all my life. It was always like a sort of aspirational, like one day I'm going to buy it, but it was owned by a very prominent family that I was like, they're never going to let it go, or I'm going to have to pay more than I have, so I'm never going to buy it. But then it was a little recession, and the first thing that came onto market was that. You know, it was like kind of like, I hesitated because I was like, what if the market goes down? But then obviously I made the better decision of saying, let's roll the dice. It's my time to have this, like there's a shuffling in the deck. So now it's your turn to have those cards and you have to play them. So I really admire and value what you said because I'm aligned. Let's go back to coaching. Let's go back to your new program that I'm super curious and super excited to take, because I think that what we were discussing before, like the how. What inspired you to make this course?
Yeah, I'm like really passionate about it. So what happened for me is that for the past, I don't know, 10 or so years, 11 years, I've been coaching. What happened, it was I sold my company when I was 40. I turned 50 last year. I'm now 51. And it was interesting because I don't know if you want to call it a midlife crisis. I don't know what you want to call it. But when I was 50, I don't know. I just woke up one day and I said, okay, when I turn 60 now, and I look back on the last 10 years, if I'm doing the exact same thing that I was doing the 10 years prior from 40 to 50, am I going to feel fulfilled? And it was this big question that was sitting out there in my head for a good while. And what it ultimately dawned on me was that no, I'm not going to feel fulfilled. And the reason why I wasn't going to feel fulfilled is because one of the frustrations I was having over the past 10 years is that I love coaching on it. I love it so much because I love giving others the same freedom that I have. The problem I have is that I can't clone myself and I'm not interested in working full time. So I only take on average about 5 clients at any given time to help. And so because of that, like I'll get a lot of like smaller companies coming to me. That one company that I was mentioning, the mother-daughter team, that tended to be a little bit smaller than I typically deal with. And my clients, I've had clients starting at 200 million, right? Like, 50, 100 million. But and I'm working right now with a startup, which because I'm like obsessed with like their idea, and I totally want to help them. But what I found so fascinating is that I would have like a lot of these small companies come to me and say, "Hey Jen, can you help me?" And I couldn't because again, I can't clone myself, and I got really, really frustrated. And I'm happy to try to find other coaches for them, but I just got so frustrated that I couldn't help them to the extent that I wanted to help them. And so while I was going through this whole kind of journey with myself, I said, "Well, wait a second. Why not figure out a way to scale myself and really teach the stuff that no one's teaching out there?" And that's where this whole concept of putting it online, and I always talk about freedom goal. What is your freedom goal? Like everyone has a goal for freedom, but what is your freedom goal, right? Your freedom goal could be about money or time or whatever it could be. So I called it the Freedom Goal Group, and it is a name, not the greatest name, but it's a good name.
It's a great name.
And the whole premise behind it is that I put together 7 lessons of the things you have to get right if you truly want to start scaling. But these are the things that no one teaches out there, and I'll explain what I mean by this. People say, okay, go figure out your North Star, your painted picture, your 3-year vision. But how the heck do you do that, right? So I'm taking you step by step. I have over 50 pre-recorded videos. I have a 168-page workbook that I have built out step by step with examples. I have tools, downloadable templates, but each lesson kind of fills into the next. So the first lesson is all about mindset, because I think that if you don't have the right mindset, good luck on even trying to scale. So I put together a whole lesson on getting your brain in the right way. The second module is about this painted picture, like where are you going, right? Getting really clear on that and asking you a lot of important questions to help you get that clarity. And then the next lesson is about then taking that painted picture that you now just created and breaking it down into 3-year, 1-year, next quarterly priorities. Look, I love Vern Harnish, in Scaling Up, and I love EOS. I love all these different methodologies out there, but no one's teaching you the how to do it. They're telling you to do it, but how do you do it? That's what this course is all about. It's all about the hand-holding, the how. So that one module is teaching you how to break it down. Then the next lesson is about how do you project plan it? How do you actually go from point A to point B in the next quarter? Again, no one teaches project management tools, right? So I have a tool that I've created that we use. My clients love it. They use it's very simple. And I'm going to teach you step by step how to project plan your priorities so that you know how to get from point A to point B, and you'll figure out if you have teammates how you know that they're on track too. And then the lesson after that is about your KPIs. Remember, we just talked about you need to understand your metrics, but no one really thinks about their whole organization. So I'm taking you through a whole lesson of how to figure out what all your unique metrics in your organization are. And then the lesson after that is putting it into a dashboard. I'm giving a dashboard template. I'm giving a whole bunch of examples of filled out dashboards. I'm giving you best practices on how to fill it out, when to fill it out, all of that. I mean, it's severely detailed, all of this. And then the last lesson is about your meeting rhythms, about making sure how do you keep this, how do you keep this all alive? What are the best practices? How long should the meeting be? What should the agenda be? And oh, by the way, you should be thinking about outside intelligence. Like if you have a team meeting in your weekly meeting, you need to spend 5 minutes. What are we hearing from the outside? Because it's really difficult to make decisions about your business if you're not getting the intel from outside. So I'm teaching every step of the way. I'm live coaching every other week to help handhold the students so that anyone who have questions, I'm here for you, right? And then we have a back-end community where students are already talking to each other, entrepreneurs, they're all asking questions. That's what this whole thing is for. We're all going to be freedom goalers together. We're going to help support one another and elevate everyone. And then eventually I'm going to create another course and another course. I have a whole bunch of ideas of what the courses are going to be about. You already got a hint on that one because it's going to be on people, the next one, but I'm going to do one on strategy, on finance. That's what it's going to be. And I want to create a whole freedom goal community so that everyone, regardless of size, has the opportunity and the knowledge to take their business to the next level. They deserve it.
Yeah, I love it. And I love the name because I think it's very aspirational. I think every entrepreneur, their motivation is freedom. Their motivation
Yeah.
is I want to do whatever I want to do. I want to work 20 hours a day, 7 days a week because I love what I do.
Totally.
That's freedom. And then sometimes that becomes a prison because then they can't scale or whatnot. And I think that you hit something that's very meaningful and a gap in the market, which is there are wonderful books about a lot of subjects, but most entrepreneurs, what happens is that you read this and you think this is for like an Intel or a
Yeah, they
S&P
have no idea
500,
how to do it.
and you think this isn't like to me, but really what you're bringing is bridging that gap and saying, hey, yes, it's for you too, do it this way.
It's the
And
glue.
so I really think what you're doing is wonderful,
Thank you.
and really going to help entrepreneurs because as an entrepreneur, the first lesson I learned is that I have to wear all hats. And then quickly you realize that you're not good at everything. You can
Yeah.
be, you need the hand holding. There's certain things that you say, this is my expertise. And then you read a book, you improve it. But the rest of the stuff, you need these type of courses to make it big and to make it scale. And one other, when we spoke the first time, is that it's okay to think about like, it's okay to have a small team. It's also okay to thinking like, I want to have a profitable business that's small,
Gosh.
but you
This
still need this course.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I think CEOs, entrepreneurs need to get rid of their egos. I see sometimes companies are hiring just to hire, and to me that's hilarious. It's like, why? Like, you should be thinking about your profit margins. Like, I mean, granted, you need to hire to grow, but don't hire to just hire. That's silly.
Yeah, because it's not like scaling doesn't mean necessarily adding zeros to revenues, adding people to your teams. It might be what you did in your first business, make it really professional, like
Yeah.
very like sort of franchise. Every process is streamlined to the point that you were like you weren't that involved in the business anymore. So I think those lessons that you learned as an entrepreneur that now that you're sharing, it's very generous of your thank God you had this frustration because now entrepreneurs like me and people that are listening can hear from someone that did it, how they do it, and then how to do it on a piecemeal, little by little, so that we can actually implement
Yeah.
and do it.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, I'm excited. I'm really excited. It's a founder's launch right now, and there's probably going to be some, bumps around on the road, but that's what entrepreneurs do. We're scrappy. We'll figure it out, right? We'll
Yeah, it's
make
not
it
about the
work.
resources, it's about the being resourceful.
Yeah, totally, totally. And this time I learned, get the right people in the right seats. So I have a team of people that are helping me launch this thing. As far as I learned, I'm like, I don't really want to learn the back end. So I found someone who's super awesome to do that part. But I did all the videotaping. I did all the writing myself. That was really important to me.
Yes. Maybe the last question, and I like to ask this to everyone, is like, what makes you feel inspired in the work that you do?
I think that's a really cool question. I think that what inspires me is seeing the impact, seeing people make changes in their life, seeing them change their life. If that's not inspiring, I don't know what is. Really, it's I can't even put words together when I see their lives completely change. When my favorite, I tend to work with a lot of people who have some health issues too, and seeing them so frustrated that I'm actually worried about their health because they are just so fried when they first start working with me, and then all of a sudden seeing them take sabbaticals and just doing other things and seeing them with a big smile on their face and they can't wait to get to the meetings with their team. Oh my gosh, there's nothing better. There's really nothing better.
Yeah.
What inspires you?
Well, I'm on the entrepreneur side as well. So I sold my business, became an investor,
Yeah.
started up again to help entrepreneurs invest because I saw that there was a big gap there. And my biggest inspiration is being able to teach others. I think that the fact when I can teach someone something that I've learned or that is new to them, that really I go home and I feel like it was a successful day, that I added value. The money comes later. Investing is about making money, but then when you were able to teach how the system works and something obscure to them now is clarified, that's when I really feel successful and I feel there was an impact. So basically it is a teaching component is something that I really like to do. And that's why I did this podcast, because it's sort of today I got a free lesson from you, and
Always happy to help.
thank you. And then I do the same with the people I surround myself with, my friends, and I'm really happy to share my thoughts.
I love it. I love it. Well, keep sharing because you're doing a good gift to the world.
Thank you so much. And thank you for being on the podcast. Please come back. We want to hear your next course when it comes out, and I am one that's going to take your course because I really feel it's important for me at my level, and as an entrepreneur, I think we can always keep improving our craft.
100%. I'm a big believer in that too. I definitely take courses still because I think it's so important that we keep elevating ourselves. Otherwise, life is boring. Thank you. I really appreciate that.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you. All right. I'll see you all later. Thank you.
Bye-bye.